The engineer lies splayed out on the ground, his body trembling violently. Iger shoves a bottle up his nose and squeezes. The engineer shudders violently, then the trembling begins to subside. She glances at you. An aerosol BZD to help treat the seizures. Bannock was kind enough to include it in his goodie bag. It won't last long, but it should give Yuli here enough muscular control to answer a few questions. The engineer's voice comes out in a trembling stutter. Fuck you, troll. Iger raises an eyebrow. See? He's talking already. The engineer's eyes burn with hate. Beads of sweat dot his brows. He struggles to control the trembles that rack his body. He takes a deep, solid breath, holds it, and releases it slowly. The trembling begins to subside. Feeling better, Yearling? Ready to chat? Slowly, the orc eyes shift from Iger to you. I know that to troll bitch. We have history, but you are a stranger to me. You sure that you have the stomach for this stranger? Not many do. I have the stomach for all sorts of things. Things that you can't even imagine, Yuli. The Shadowrunner thinks she can frighten me. His voice sounds stronger now. The stutter that marred his speech has almost completely faded away. How adorable. Oh, Yuli, you should be frightened. She slaps him across the face, splitting his lip down the middle. The impact sounds like a gunshot. You're in serious trouble, my friend. Iger leans in towards the engineer. He recoils, grinding the back of his head against the grease-stained Duraplast tiles. You're helpless. A fucking cripple. Her voice comes out in a snarl. But if you answer our questions, things will go easier for you. So tell us, whose payroll are you on? She grabs a fistful of the orc's hair and lifts his head. Her face is inches from his. Tell us who sent you to Shotanist. There's a long pause. Eventually, the engineer looks away. Alright, you want to know so badly? I'll tell you. Taminus sent me here. They want to use Shotanist as a base of operations in Berlin. My point of contact is a ghoul named Beetle. He leans forward and locks eyes with Iger. There, you've got your intel. Now set me free or kill me. Yuli. Iger leans back, shaking her head. You wouldn't roll over an employer this easily. Your rep tells me that much. He raises an eyebrow in a look of mock astonishment. No? No, Iger's right. You're jerking us around. You wanted a name, I gave you a name. Want more? I can give you that too. I can name you 100 clients who'd love a piece of Shotanist. How do you intend to determine who really sent me? I got a couple ideas. The engineer smirks. You can try beating the truth out of me. You can try cutting on me. Get creative with the pliers if you like. Every time you hurt me, I'll give you a different name. Torture me or don't, it'll all end the same way. I'll be dead and you'll know nothing for certain, and my clients will move ahead on schedule. Cooperate, and maybe it doesn't have to end that way. Maybe you'll get out of here alive. He snorts. You think I'm delusional, woman? I'm already dead. The she-troll beside you is going to put a bullet in my brain as soon as she gets what she wants. Just look at her. Take a long look at that ugly troll face. She's just aching to put me in the ground. Iger's hands bunch into fists. She's still smiling, but you can feel the heat of the hatred behind her eyes. You've got bigger issues to worry about than my face, Yuli. If you don't start telling me what I want to hear in the next 30 seconds, this is going to get messy. I know that look, Yuli. You'd start talking if I were. The engineer cuts you off. A perverse smile has spread itself across his face. You know, Iger. He takes his time pronouncing the name. Savors it. I'd like to tell you a story. We share so much history, you and I. Iger says nothing, but her eyes narrow. The engineer continues, his grin broadening. This is a funny story. It's about your time in the KSK, a story about futility. I can tell you all about the many lives you've touched and how the syndicates touched them again afterward. Would you like that? There's a long pause. Eventually, Iger turns to face you. Afer, do me a favor. Sweep the building for intel. Anything we might have missed on the way in. I don't know if that's a great idea, Iger. It's necessary, Afer. She shoots a disgusted glance at your captive. And I won't let this twisted little prick chase me out of the room. He can tell me whatever story he likes. I feel like this guy is getting under your skin, and we can't afford to kill him before we get to the truth. Don't worry about me. Everything's alright on my end. But this asshole is right about one thing. We aren't going to solve this on his word alone. Agreed, but I don't think we can beat the answers out of him either. No, of course not. She sighs. I'm sure that he'd eventually spill the name we're looking for, but it'd be buried in so much white noise that it'd be impossible to filter out. If you can find some corroborating evidence, though, that might help us wade through the river of bullshit he's spewing. I can't tell you what to look for, but he was doing business with Rambach in the building. There must be something in here that can tell us who he represents. Alright, Iger, but remember, we need this son of a bitch alive. No torture. Yeah. She turns back to the engineer. I'm good, but be quick. Barrels. Chemical storage barrel. A light jostle shows that they're completely empty. Courier drone. Look, smells at the cargo container is empty. Another courier drone. This generic courier drone has been snapped together out of prefab parts from a dozen different manufacturers. It's a cheap utilitarian thing, remarkable only in that it is so incredibly plain. A half-bright teenager could cobble together something like this in an afternoon. The drone sits in a charging cradle, is turbofan powered. A cheerful green light blinks on its front panels, reminding that it's still active. You can see the silhouette of something under the flimsy plastic dome of the drone's cargo compartment. Whatever the thing was here to deliver, it's still carrying it. Pop the lid. You depress the catch in the container's plastic lid. Rather than swinging open, the lid slides back to reveal a touchpad. Looks as though this thing is password locked. Intelligence. Taking a look close, you notice something strange. There's a set of electronic contact plates lining the top of the drone's cargo compartment. It's a fair bet this thing is outfitted with an anti-tampering system of some kind. Well, I don't have a password, and I'm not a decker, and I don't have a decker with me because, God forbid, we bring anyone with us. Oh, there's a dead person. The broken body of a human man lies on the floor. His face is a mess of fresh cuts and congealing blood, and his head is oddly deformed. Despite his wounds, his mouth is twisted into a macabre smile. Judging by the shape of the ganger's head, you'd guess that his skull has been fractured in at least 3 places. The center of his forehead is particularly gruesome. It looks soft, as though the skin were stretched like a tent between shards of broken bones. Looking up, you can see a great smear of gore on the door of the room that you found him in. The implications are clear. This man bashed his own head in trying to get out, and he did it with a smile on his face. His hands are badly broken too. You've seen these sorts of injuries after bare-knuckle fistfights, but never anything this severe. The man punched something hard and went on punching until his hands were reduced to useless slabs of meat. There's a small ledger lying on this crate. The cover is cheap leatherette, and the paper is tissue-thin newsprint. The pages are filled to overflowing with handwritten text. You don't recognize the language, but judging by the accent marks, you'd guess it's a Scandinavian tongue. While you can't read it, the arrangement of the text tells you that the ledger is primarily being used in an address book. Take the book with me. Forklift! The forklift tires are flat. Looks like it's been used in years. So my guess, whatever's in these chemicals was being used to fuck that guy up. Holding the drone steady in one hand, you shatter the flimsy plastic that protects its cargo with the other. The reaction is swift and violent. Within a fraction of a second, the air is filled with loud hissing sound and the drone erupts in flame. A growing hole in its undercarriage begins spitting out a hail of white-hot sparks. You've seen this kind of reaction before. A thermite charge, no doubt wired to act as an anti-tampering device. It will continue to burn through the drone until there's nothing left. Quick to 6, try to grab what's ever in the cargo department. You snake your hand through the hole that you smashed in the compartment's lid. The heat is unbearable, but you manage to find what you're looking for. A small disc-shaped object nestled inside a plastic bracket. You can pry it loose, but not without getting burned in the process. That's fine. Ow. You pry the disc loose and snatch your hand back as the hail of sparks intensifies. Everywhere a spark touches you, it burns a neat pinhole through your clothing, and a white-hot lance of pain arcs to your body. The heat from the flames is too much. Your vision glazes red, and the stench of burning plastic clogs your nostrils. You're dead before you hit the floor. Not that dead! As you approach, you can see that the engineer's chest is sheeted with blood. Most of it seems to be streaming from his nose, which has been crushed into a wad of bloody meat. Iger turns to face you. Her bunched fists are dripping red. Find anything? She speaks to you through clenched teeth. Her voice is strained, and her cheeks are flushed. I thought you said you weren't going to resort to torture. This isn't torture, it's justice. If you knew half of what this bastard has done, if you heard the things he just told me, you'd do the same. Beating the heart of a helpless prisoner isn't justice. Now stand down. She pauses, then turns away. Just tell me what you found. Yes, please. The engineer's voice is thick and wet. He smiles through a set of gore-streaked teeth. I found a body in the other room. From the looks of him, he tried using his head to break down a steel-reinforced door. Interesting, but not usual in these parts. There are all kinds of drugs that could make a person act that way, and most aren't hard to get in a place like Shotnez. Have you found anything else? Simpson's chip. There are a pair of courier drones in the other room. No markings, they look custom built. One of them had been slagged, but the other had this chip in its storage compartment. When he produced the chip, the engineer's eyes widen slightly. He turns his head and coughs rack his body. Interesting. This means something to you, Yuli? Iger takes the chip from you and holds it up to the light. No identifying markings. I've seen enough BTLs in my time to know when I see it, but this is different. It's been modified somehow. Go ahead and slot it, bitch. It'll take you on the ride of your life. Iger raises an eyebrow. Smack him for you, will me? I'm busy. He isn't worth the effort. She pauses a moment, then nods. Yeah, you're right. Besides, I think that we're getting closer. Look at his temples. See the sweat beating up? I see that Yuli's developed himself a habit. You don't know what you're holding, slag. He spits the word out like venom. His eyes are locked on the chip in Iger's hand, so that he licks his lips. You don't deserve to touch that chip. I thought this guy was a professional. He is. I know his rep. I know that he's much too careful to get himself addicted to stims. She glances at the engineer. His eyes are locked on the chip. If these things have him hooked this badly, they must be even more addictive than standard BTLs. That's a frightening thought. You're telling me the last thing we need is more sim junkies on our streets. She turns to face the engineer. You got anything to add to that, Yuli? You have no idea how wrong you are about all of this. He struggles to rise from the floor, but his muscles refuse to cooperate. Finally, he gives up with a scowl. If I could move my arms, I'd take the chip from you and show you what it does. I'm sure that you would. She glances over her shoulder at you. Good find, Afer. We've struck a nerve. Any other thoughts? Yeah, actually, I think I might know where the other chip went. Remember the body I found in the other room? Yeah, good thought. Go check it out, but be quick. I don't know how long it'll be before we have company here. Pulling back a patch of matted hair, you find something that a casual viewer would have missed. The man had a chip jack. It's a cheap model, sufficient for loading SimSim chips and BTLs, but little else. It doesn't take much effort for you to pry it open. Inside the chip jack, you find a glob of plastic. It looks as though whatever this guy was running melted down sometime after he slotted it. A chip jack like this couldn't generate enough heat to destroy a SimSense chip. The only logical conclusion is that the chip itself was wired to melt down after use. Take the burned out chip and leave. The engineer's eyes remain locked on the chip. His face has gone pallid white and his shirt is drenched with sweat. His eyes bulge and his breathing is heavy. Iger glances up from your manic captive and looks you in the eye. Found what you're looking for? Yeah, I pried his chip jack open and found a blob of melted plastic inside. It was still warm to the touch. Iger examines the remnants of the chip in your fingers. I've heard of things like this before. Single-use stims designed to self-destruct after they're slotted. Keeps the customers from using the same BTL over and over again. I say you find our missing chip. Yeah, I agree, but the ganger who slotted this wasn't blissed out like a normal sim junkie. It was almost the opposite. He looked wild, like a madman. Madman. The engineer let out a chuckle. It's a hoarse, barking sound. You don't know a damned thing. I know that you'd love to get your hands on that chip Iger's holding, if you could move your hands, that is. Hatred burns in the engineer's stare. He struggles to rise from the floor, but after a few seconds of ineffectual thrashing, he gives up. You really want this thing, don't you? She waves the chip in front of his eyes. This is junkie behavior. Whatever this thing is, you're hooked on it. He snarls up at Iger, his face screwed into a look of pure hatred. The chip is everything. Everything. It's worth dying for. I was ignorant once like you, but then my eyes were opened and I saw. The chip, slot one and you become a god. Iger stares at him, her expression flat. The engineer sneers. I too was a skeptic. Then the wolf caught me and the raven opened my eyes and now at last I can see. Suddenly, he lurches forward. Every muscle in his body goes tight, and the cords stand out on his neck. Give me the chip. It was promised to me. I need it. Tell us who you're working for, and it's all yours. The engineer spits out a mouthful of blood. It hits the tile floor with a sickening splat. He grinds his teeth and snarls out a single word. Winter night. There is a moment of silence. Finally, Iger speaks. Never heard of them. Of course you haven't, bitch. If you had, you'd already be dead. They don't leave loose ends. His body begins to tremble. It looks like the drugs are wearing off. They have the money, tree troll, money and influence enough to put the syndicates to shame. Even I cannot say how much, but I do know that what I've seen is just the tip of the spear. Alright, let's say you're telling the truth and some sort of secret society is behind this. What do they want with Shotanist? They do not tell me these things. All I know is that they want to store things here. Crates, boxes shipped from all over. No cargo inspections and no traces back to them. What are they shipping in? Weapons, drugs, more of these BTLs? He eyes her incredulously. You think that I asked them? It's not my place to know. All that I think I know is that what was promised to me. You give me the chip. His voice comes out in a shivering screech. You promised. She promised you the chip. Iger smiles at the engineer. Slowly she pulls a knife from her belt. Its serrated edge glints in the light. I, on the other hand, didn't offer you a goddamn thing. She's got you there. Iger leans in to look the engineer in the eye. She grins. Goodbye, Yuli. She plunges her blade into the engineer's throat. The orc, without a strangled, gurgling sound, thrashes and dies. Iger wipes her hand clean and looks up, an expression of grim satisfaction on her face. Well, that takes care of that. Thanks for the assist, fearless leader. Anytime, ready to head back to the cruise bazaar? We need to let the F-State know about this. Hang on a second, we should search the body first. Who knows, maybe he has some additional evidence on him. Or in him. She taps a finger against his forehead. Could be he has headwear storage. We won't know unless we go digging. Alright, let's get this over with. Time passes, the job is long and unpleasant, but eventually you find something. A hidden storage compartment in one of the engineer's cyber arms. Deactivated as the cyberware is, it takes some prying to get it open, but Iger leans in and puts some muscle into it. With a metallic snapping sound, the compartment yawns open. Iger reaches in and pulls out a cylindrical object about the size of a beer can. She inspects it and a smile creeps on her face. What the hell is that? She holds the object up for your inspection. This, my friend, is a pulse grenade. The last I heard, the Russian military were developing them as crowd dispersal devices, but that was years ago. Looks like Yuli kept a memento of his time in the Spetsnaz. She examines the grenade with a critical eye. Looks like the typical Russian engineering. Clunky but functional. If I took this thing apart, I bet I could figure out how they made it. Anything else in there? She dips her hand into the secret compartment one more time. No, not that I can. Without warning, the engineer's cyber arms begin to twitch. His body bucks convulsively while his dead eyes stare straight ahead. Ager snatches her hand back and steps backward. What the heck? The engineer's body surges forward, a violent convulsing motion. His eyes bulge out of his skull, then his chest evaporates in a spray of light. As you watch, the chemical fire that rages from the engineer's body blackens his flesh and spits spark across the room. It's the same reaction that you saw when the drone went up, a thermite reaction. His employers, Winter Night, they must have implanted that thing in him. Yeah, must have. I'm willing to bet that if we hadn't used the cyberware deactivator on him, he'd have gone up before he had the chance to spill any names. If you're looking for further proof, I think this was it. Yeah, looks that way. Let's go. People need to know about this. Are you only giving me that now? Let's go out the door. Let's go back to the cruise bazaar. The U-Bahn whisked you back to the cruise bazaar. Ager stands by your side. The image of the engineer's body disintegrating in flame replays itself over and over in your mind, the bright flash, the shower of sparks, the overpowering stench of sizzling meat. A blue-green afterimage hangs suspended in the center of your field of vision and it refuses to be blinked away. From what Iger told you, the engineer was a menace, an international criminal at the top of his game, and as you watched, he was consumed from within by a device that marked him as disposable. The rattle of your U-Bahn car comes to a halt, shakes from your reverie. You're home. Let's see. Let's give it a talk to Blitz. Hey, Fur, I'd offer you a smoke, but that was my last one. Hey, how'd that whole Emily situation works out? Turn up anything new? Yeah, well, sort of. It's mostly speculation, truth be told. So what's the deal? Is she working with the Azzies or what? No, I don't think so, but I do have a lead. After our talk, I went wading into all of the Aztec Technology Matrix hubs that I could find. Nothing too deep, don't worry. I didn't want to set off any alarm bells. But I had a hunch that if I poked around long enough, I'd find something that might lead me to Emily. And sure enough, I did. A message from the genuine article herself. She messaged you. Sure enough, sent me a note. Want to hear what it said? He presses forward without waiting for a response. I'll tell you. The note said, and I quote, "Lay off, Blitz. I told you to leave me alone. You showed admirable self-control over the past year. Please don't give up on it now. I'll be back when I can, if I can. Until then, keep away from me for both of our sakes." So, I found her, and she wants nothing to do with me. Again. No explanations, no apologies, just a verbal pat on the head. I've shown admirable self-control. Really? She makes it sound like I'm a toddler or something. So did you lay off like the message said? Hell no, I wasn't going to stand for that. Where did she get off stealing from me and acting like it was my fault? I tried to chase the message like any Decker would. I know your use of the word tried. He nods grimly. She's good, Afer. Better than I ever thought she was. I couldn't trace the damned thing. I could keep digging, though. I mean, if she noticed me doing it before, I must have been close. Now, before you say something, I was more discreet this time. I can be subtle if I have to. Nobody knows what I was doing, and I did find another clue. I hesitate to ask. That's okay, I'll tell you anyway. I found a connection between Emily and Satyr Croup. So, do you think that she works for SK then? That she stole your encrypted data from you to give to them? Well, maybe. I don't know, it's confusing. I was able to track down some message from fragments connecting her to the bullshit group. So maybe she was a Satyr Croup mole, and she got close to me so she could, I don't know, she could profit from my decking expertise. Maybe when she told me not to steal that data, she was using reverse psychology. That's gotta be it. She must have wanted me to take it. He frowns, then shakes his head. But then again, maybe she's with the bullshit group, and she's screwing both the Azis and SK over. If that's the case, then maybe she was with me because she genuinely wanted to be. He pauses for a moment, considering, then all at once he seems to perk up. His chest puffs out, and he nods once decisively. In either case, I should make an effort to find her. I mean, she's playing a dangerous game, whether she's with SK or the Shockwellen Rider. Maybe she's gotten herself in too deep. She might need help. I mean, why else send me such a cryptic message? Blitz, that message was anything but cryptic. She wants you to stay far, far away. Yeah, that's what she said, but I'll bet she didn't mean it. She probably just didn't want to worry me, or maybe she's under duress. I mean, you gotta agree that it's at least worth checking out. Blitz, listen to me. This is a bad idea, and nothing good is going to come from it. You worry too much, Chief. I'm the best, remember? So where's the harm in digging a little deeper? I mean, Em might need me. If this is how you acted when you and Emily were together, I can see why she left. He recoils as if you'd punched him. Whoa! That was a pretty messed up thing to say, Chief. It was also accurate. You routinely ignore those around you because you think that you know better. I'm here to tell you, you do not know better. But Blitz, listen to me. You need to show some more of that self-control and drop this. Blitz deflates before your eyes. He looks down at his shoes. Yeah, I guess you're right. Okay, boss, you win. I'll let it go. I hope I haven't locked myself out of a quest line. Well, that seems to be what she wants him to do, so, Let's talk to Glory. See if she has anything to say. Nope. Let's talk to Iger. Iger welcomes you with a nod. Afer, what can I do for you? We should talk about what happened with the engineer. She nods. Agreed. I'm ready to go over it if you are. So the engineer was working for a secret society. I wasn't expecting that. Neither was I. She frowns. A part of me is still having trouble believing it, but it's true. Yuli wasn't lying. I could see it in his eyes. When I left that room to search for clues, the engineer told you something that pushed you over the edge. Her eyes narrowed. That son of a bitch said a lot of things. What of it? You knew that we needed him, but you beat him badly. I'm worried about that lapse of control. You don't need to be. There's nothing wrong with self-control. I made a choice to unload on Yuli because he was a murderous asshole. I knew how much pressure to apply, which bones to break, and which ones to leave alone, and I did all of those things. But why? What did he tell you to push you to that point? It takes her a long time to respond. When she does, her voice carries a tone of resignation. You really want to know? Alright, fine, I'll tell you. He told me about a bunch of Polish towns that my unit swept for syndicate activity. He told me how the mob poured back in right after we left and what they did to the people who'd accepted our help. He told me about the beatings, the rapes, the killing rooms, and the torture, and worse. He relished in describing it, the relentless, hideous barbarism of it all, and all meant to teach some sort of lesson. I think that's the cruelest part of this entire story. Those people, they didn't need a lesson in how terrible it can be. They live with that every day. Yuli seemed to find find all of this hilarious. Yeah, I know that he was pushing my buttons on purpose, and yeah, I know that he was trying to make me lose control. But the hell with it, he deserved a good beating. You really didn't pull any punches, so I didn't pull any punches. And if you have a problem with that, you can go and get fucked. My problem isn't with Yuli getting punished, it's with the fact that you let him play you. Maybe, but I can't ignore the possibility that he wasn't playing me, that those things did happen. She grits her teeth. That'd be a bitter pill to swallow, Afer. If I leave things where they stand, there'll always be some hope that he was lying. But if I dig into this and to find that he was telling the truth, if I found that none of what we did meant anything... Even if he was telling you the truth, that doesn't invalidate what your unit was doing over there. Doesn't it? Our actions might have drawn attention to those people, made them targets. They were already targets. You need to quit beating yourself up over this, Iger. It isn't like you. She gives you a brusque nod. You're right, it isn't. No more moping about, I promise, and I will look into this, Afer. Wherever this trail leads me, I'll follow it and I won't stop until I find the truth. I'm willing to help you see through it if you want the help. She shakes her head. Thanks, but no. Not now, at least. At some point after we're done with what we're doing, I'll look into this. I'll get to the truth, whatever it might be, but I'm not going to do it today. Sounds like your priority's in the right place. When are you ready to start looking, you can call on me for help. I've got your back, Iger. She nods. I know it, and I'm glad. Now let's change tack. Is there anything else from the run that you'd like to go over? If you have any thoughts, I'd like to hear them. Have you been able to do any digging on Winter Night? No, there just isn't much reliable information out there. Whoever these guys are, they're very good at information control. None of my contacts can find anything but rumor and conjecture, and most of that is too crazy to even consider. Just because it sounds nuts, that doesn't mean it isn't true. The world has more than enough crazy to go around. True. What I've been hearing about Winter Night is straight up mental. We're talking stories about magical nukes and the end of the world, Fenris shamans, Ragnarok, that's the kind of thing. She shakes her head. Like I said, nuts. Yeah, and the most powerful corporation in the world is run by a dragon. Like I said, crazy things happen. Fair point. But this is just too far out there for me to accept. It's far more likely they release these stories themselves to throw people off of whatever they're really doing. Anyway, we stopped them cold and shot a nest. Whatever their business is, whatever was going to be in those crates the engineer was having them shipped there, it isn't our problem anymore. The crew's bazaar is safe, on that front at least. Yeah, it is, and we've got you to thank for that. And you, don't downplay what you did back there. Anyway, we shouldn't let it go to our heads. We still have a dragon to worry about. You said that you could reverse engineer that pulse grenade that you pulled from the engineer. Any luck with that? Yeah, actually, it wasn't too difficult to pull the thing apart and see what made it tick. She smiles. Making one of my own was a different story, but I got it in the end. She reaches into her desk and grabs a cylindrical object. Gently, she lifts it up and hands it to you. Meet the newest addition to my arsenal. I call it the voltaic grenade. It's based on the same principles of the Russian pulse grenade, but a few tweaks of my own. Nice. You said these things were designed for crowd control. Originally, yeah. Mine has a lot more bite, though. It bumped up the amperage quite a bit. When that thing goes off, it'll both shut down the nervous system and cook the organs of anyone in its blast radius. Hand back the grenade. Sounds nasty. She nods and tucks the weapon back into her desk. It is. You wouldn't be on the wrong end of one of these. For now, I've only managed to make one voltaic grenade. They aren't the easiest things in the world to manufacture or the cheapest. She nods thoughtfully. But I should be able to scrounge up enough raw materials to put a new one together between each run. Sounds good to me. Can we talk about something else? That's it. Nothing. Alright. So I've kind of helped everyone with everything, except for our Decker. I don't know, he's still being himself. Do I have any messages? Nope. Does BBS have anything going on? F State Protection. The writers have it on good authority that the Lobachevsky Syndicate is eyeing Shatness for expansion. For the good of the Flux, we should keep a watchful eye on this situation. See attached files for more details. Okay, bad news for Shatness, but if the Rambach isn't going to stop them and I hear Surturf is out of the picture, well, I'm sure there's some polyclub out there who wants that piece of pie. I know we've got enough of them. I know that Humanus has some presence there, but I doubt they'll fight the Russians too much. I'd say they're far more likely to form a partnership. Thread. Energy sources? I've got solar panels like everybody, but does anyone have experience with these mana turbine devices? I'm off the grid, so there are times when I need to do some late night decking or maintenance on my telescoping limbs. Is that the thing where a mage comes by and drops some juice into a generator? My buddy was telling me about them last week. The turbine spins the mana around, and the charge lasts for weeks, he said. They're a scam, chummer. That mage is going to be out of there gonna be out of there with your money before you realize how much power you've actually got. You're better off peddling a bike battery. Do I have any pay data? Nope.